Great good morning officers. I Sumit Kumar Singh welcome all of you in Magatputra YouTube channel for UPSC Civil Services preparation. My dear friends, today in this video we are going to talk about the optional paper of Animal Husbandry and Veterinary Science. In this Animal Husbandry and Veterinary Science, there were two papers, paper 1 and paper 2. So, if you are the first time in my channel Magatputra, then like, share and subscribe my channel for daily current affairs, point-wise summary and up-to-date related to UPSC preparation. So today in this video, we are going to talk about the Animal Husbandry and Veterinary Science optional paper of UPSC. And let us start with paper 1. These are like animal nutrition, partitioning of food energy within the animal, direct and indirect, calorimetry, carbon nitrogen balance and comparative slaughter method, system for expressing energy value of foods in ruminants, pigs and poultry, energy requirements for maintenance, growth, pregnancy, lactations, egg, wool and meat production, latest advances in protein nutrition, energy, protein and interrelationship, evaluation of protein quality, use of NP and compounds in ruminants diet, protein requirements for maintenance, growth, pregnancy, lactations, egg, wool and meat production, major and trace animals, major and trace minerals, their sources, psychological functions and deficiency symptoms, toxic minerals interactions, role of fat soluble and water soluble vitamins in the body, their sources and deficiency symptoms. Feed additivities, methane inhibitors, probiotics, enzymes, antibiotics, hormones, oligosaccharides, antioxidants, influencers, mole inhibitors, buffers, etc. Use and abuse and growth promoters like hormones and antibiotics. Latest concepts. Conservation of fooders, storage of feed and feed ingredients, recent advances in the feed technology and feed processing, anti-nutritionals and toxic factors present in livestock feeds, feed analysis and quality control, digestibility trials, direct and indirect and indicated methods, predicting feed intake in grazing animals, advances in ruminant nutrition, nutrient requirement, balanced rations, feeding of calves, pregnant, work animals and breeding bulls, strategies for feeding milk animals during different stages of lactation cycle, effect of feeding on milk composition, feeding of goats for meat and milk production, feeding of sheep for meat and wool production, swine nutrition, nutrients requirement, creep, starter, grower and finished rations, feeding of pigs for lean meat production, low cost rations for swine, poultry nutrition, special features of poultry nutrition, nutrients requirement for meat and egg production, formulation of rations for different classes of layers and boilers. Now move animal psychology, animal physiology, physiology of blood and its circulation, respirations, excretions, endocrine glands in health and diseases, blood constituents, properties and functions of blood cell formation, hemoglobin synthesis and chemistry, plasma, protein production, classification and properties, coagulations of blood, hemophagic disorders and anticoagulants, blood groups, blood volume, plasma expanders, buffer system in blood, biochemical tests and their significance in disease diagnosis. Circulation, physiology of heart, cardiac cycle, heart sound, heartbeat, electrocardiograms, work and efficiency of heart, effects of ions on heart, functions, metabolism of cardiac muscles, nervous and chemical regulations of heart, effect of temperature and states of heart, blood pressures and hypertension, osmotic regulations, arterial pulse, vasomotors regulations, of circulation, shock, coronary and pulmonary circulation, blood-brain barriers, cerebrospinal fluid circulation involved. Respirations. A mechanism for respiration, transport and exchange of gases, neural control of respiration, chemoreceptors, hypoxia respiration inwards. Excretions, structures and function of kidney, formation of urine, method of studying renal functions, renal regulations of acid-base balance, psychological constituents of urine, renal failure, passive venous congestions, urinary secretions of chicken sweat glands and their functions, biochemical test for urinary dysfunctions, endocrine glands, functional disorder, their symptoms and diagnosis, synthesis of hormones, mechanisms and control of secretions, hormonal receptors, classification and functions, growth and animal production, parental and postnatal growth, maturations, growth of curves, measures of growth, factors affecting growth, conformations, body compositions and meat quality. आगे है physiology of milk production, reproduction and digestion. Current status of hormonal control of mammary development, milk secretions and milk ejections. Male and female reproductive organs, their component and functions, digestive organs and their functions, environmental physiology, physiological relations and their regulations, mechanism of adaptation, environmental factors and regulatory mechanisms involving animal behavior, climatology, various parameters and their importance, animal ecology, physiology of behavior, effect of stress on health and production. Animal reproduction. Animal reproduction. Semen qualities, preservation and artificial inseminations, components of semen, composition of spermatozoa, chemical and the physical properties of ejaculation semen, factors affecting semen in vivo and the vitro, factor affecting semen's production and the quality preservation, composition in diluents, sperm concentration, transport of diluted semen, deep freezing techniques in cows, sheep, goats and swine and poultry, detections and of osteris and the time of inseminations for better conception, anostrus and repeat breeding. Livestock production and management. Livestock production and management. Commercial dairy farming. Comparison of the dairy farming in India with advanced countries, starting under mixed farming and at specialized farming. Economic dairy farming, starting of a dairy farm. Capital and land requirement, organization of the dairy farm, opportunities in dairy farming, factors determining the efficiency of the dairy animal herd, recording budgeting cost of milk production, pricing policy, personal management, developing practical and economic rations for dairy cattle, supply of grains throughout the developing and practical and economic rations for dairy cattle, supplying of grain throughout the year, feed and fodder, requirements of dairy farms, feeding regions for young stock and wolves, heifers and the breeding animals, nutrients in the feeding young and adult stocks, feeding records. Commercial meat, eggs and wool production, development of practical and economic rations for sheep, goats, pigs, rabbits and poultry, supply of grain fodder and feeding regimes for young and mature stock. New trends in enhancing production and management, capital and land requirements and social economic concept. Feeding and management of animals under drought, food and other natural calamities. Now, another topic is genetic and animal breeding. History of animal genetics. Mitosis and meiosis. Mendelian inheritance, deviation to Mendelian genetics, expression of genes, linkages and crossing over sex determination, sex influenced and sex limited characters, blood groups and polymorphism, chromosomes, aberrations, cytoplasmic inheritance, gene and its structure, DNA as a genetic material, genetic code and protein synthesis, recombinant DNA technology, mutations, type of mutations, method for detecting mutations and mutations rate, transgenesis, populations, genetic applied to animal breeding, quantitative versus qualitative trade, Hardy Wainwright's law, population versus individual gene and genotypic frequency, forces changing gene frequency, random drift, and small population. Theory of path coefficient in breeding method of estimating in breeding coefficient system of breeding effective population size, breeding value estimations of breeding value, dominance and epistatic deviation, parsoning of variations, genotype X environment, correlation and genotype X in environment, interactions, role of multiple measurements, resemblance between relatives. Breeding systems. Breeds of livestock and poultry, hereditability, repeatability, and genetic and phenotypic correlations. Their methods of estimations and precisions of estimates. Aids to selections and their relative merits. Individuals, pedigree, family, and within the family selection. Pregnancy testing method of selections, constructions of selection in dyes and their uses. Comparative evaluations of genetic gains through various selections methods, indirect selection and correlated response in breeding, outbreeding, upgrading, crossbreeding, and synthesis of breed. Crossing of inbreed lines for commercial production, selection of genetic and specific combination ability, breeding for threshold characters, Sari index. फिर आगे है extension. Basic philosophy, objective, concept and principles of extension. Different method adopted to educate farmers under rural conditions, generations of technology, its transfer and feedback, problems and constraints in transfer of technology, animal husbandry, programs for rural development. Now move toward the GS paper 2. GS paper 2 of animal husbandry, optional paper. The anatomy and the pharmacology and hygienic, histology and histological techniques, preference, embedding techniques of issues, processing and HE staining and freezing, microtomy, microscopy, bright field microscope and electron microscope, cytology, structure of the cell organelles and inclusions, cell division, cell type tissues and their classifications, embryonic and adult tissues, comparative histology of organs, vasculars, nervous, digestive and respiratory, muscular and skeletal and urogenetical system, endocrine glands, integuments and sense organs. Embryology of vertebrates with a special reference to apes and domestic mammals. Gametogenesis, fertilizations, gems, layer, fertile membranes, and flactonians, types of placenta in domestic mammals. Teratology, twins and twinning organogenesis, germs, layer of derivate endoderminals, mesoderminals, and ectoderminals derivatives. Bovine anatomy, regional anatomy, Ferrecinal senescence of OX, surface anatomy, and salivary glands, regional anatomy or infraorbital, maxillary and mandibular, mental and coronal nerve block, regional anatomy of paravertebral nerves, pudendal nerves, median, neural and radial nerve vestibule, fibular and distal nervous, cranial nervous structures involving epidural, anthesthesia, superficial lymph nodes, surface anatomy of visceral organs of thoracic, abdominals and pelvic cavities, comparative features of locomotor apparatus and their applications in the biomechanisms of mammalian body. Anatomy of fowl, musculoskeletal system, functional anatomy in relations to respiration and flying, digestions and egg production. Pharmacology and therapeutic drugs, a cellular level of pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics, drug acting on fluids and electrolyte balance, drug acting on autonomic nervous system, modern concept of anesthesias and dissociative and aesthetics, autocords, antimicrobials, and the principle of chemotherapy in fuel infections, use of hormones in therapeutics, chemotherapy of parasite infections, drug and economic concern in the edible tissues of animals, chemotherapy of neoplastic diseases, toxicity due to the insecticides, plants, metals and non-metals, deutonics and mycotoxins, veterinary hygiene with reference to water, air and habitations, assessment of the pollution of the water, air and soil, importance of the climate in animal health, effect of environment on animal functions and performance, relationship between industrialization and animal agriculture, animal housing requirement for specific categories of domestic animals, which pregnant cows and so milking cows, boilers, bird, strains, and productivity in relations to animal habitations. Animal disease, etiology, epidemiology, pathogenesis, symptoms, post-mortem lesions, diagnosis and control of infectious disease of cattle, sheep, and goats, horses, pig, poultry, etiology, epidemiology, symptom, diagnosis, treatment of production disease of the cattle, horse, pig, and poultry, deficiency disease of domestic animals and birds, diagnosis and treatment of non-specific conditions like impatience, bolite, diarrhea, indigestions, dehydration, stroke, and poisoning, diagnosis and treatment of neurological disorder, principles and method of immunization of animal against specific diseases, herd immunity, diseases-free zones, zero diseases concept, chemoprophylaxis, anesthesias, local, regional, and general, parenthetic medicines, symptoms, and surgical interference in fractures and dislocations, hernia, choking, abdominal displacement, Cascadian operations, rheumatomy, castrations, disease investigations techniques, material for laboratory investigations, establishment, animal health center, disease-free zones. आगे है veterinary public health. Now the next is veterinary public health, zoonosis, classification, definition, role of animals and origin, prevalence and transmission of zoonotic diseases, occupational zoonotic diseases, epidemiology, a principal definition and epidemiological terms, applications of epidemiological measures in the study of diseases and disease control, epidemiological features of air, water, and food-borne infections, OIE regulations, WTO sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Veterinary jurisprudence, rules and regulation for improvement of animal quality and prevention of animal diseases, state and central rules for prevention of animals and animal product-borne diseases, SP and CA, legal cases, certificates, materials, and methods of collections of samples for Vedio legal investigations, milk and milk product technology, market milk, the quality testing and grading of raw milk, processing, packaging, storing, distribution, marketing, defects and their control, preparation of their following milk, pasteurized, standardized, tone, double tone, sterilized, homogenized, reconstituted, recombined and flavored milk, preparation of the milk cultures and their management, yogurt, dahi, lassi and srikhand, preparation of the flavored and sterilized milks, legal standardized sanitization requirement for clean and safe milk and for the milk plant equipments, milk product technology, selection of the raw material, processing, storing, distributing, and the marketing milk products such as the cream, butter, ghee, khoya, chana, cheese, condensed, evaporated, diet milk, and the baby food, ice cream, and Kulfi byproducts, high day product, buttermilk, lactose, and casein, testing, grading, judging milk product, BIS, and AGMARK specifications, legal standards, quality control, nutritive properties, packaging, processing, and operational control, posting, and dairy products. Now the next is the meat hygiene and technology. Meat hygiene, anti-mortem care and the management of the food, animal stunning, slaughter, and dressing operations, abattoirs requirements and design, meat inspection procedures and judgment of the carcass meat cuts, grading of carcass meat cuts, duties and functions of veterinarian in wholesome meat production, hygiene method of handling production of meat. Spoilage of meat and the control measures post slaughter, psychochemical changes in the meat and the factor that influence them with the quality improvement method, adulteration of the meat and detections, regulatory provisions in meat trade and industry, meat technology, physical and chemical characteristics of meat. Meat emulsions, method of the preservations of the meat, curing, canning, irradiation, packaging of the meat and meat product, processing and formulation, byproduct, slaughterhouse byproduct and their utilization, edible and inedible byproduct, social and economic implications of the proper utilization of the slaughterhouse byproduct, organs, products for food and pharmaceuticals, poultry product technology, chemical composition and nutritive value of poultry meat, pre-slaughter care and the management, slaughtering techniques, inspections, preservations of the poultry meat and product, legals and VIS standard, structure, composition and nutritive values of egg, microbial spoilage, preservations and the maintenance, marketing of poultry meat, eggs and product, rabbit for animal farming, rabbit meat productions, disposal and utilization of the wool for recycling of the waste byproduct, grading of wool. So these are the important topic related to the animal husbandry of paper 2, as well as I summarize in front of you paper 1 of this optional paper of animal husbandry and veterinary science. So these are the small short and sweet summary in front of you. I provide in this video animal husbandry and veterinary science optional papers, syllabus of paper 1 and paper 2. So if you think it is informative and knowledgeable, like, share and subscribe for daily current affairs, point-wise summary and important topic and analysis and upgradation related to UPSC Civil Services preparation. Thank you. Have a great day.